Good evening again. Today is Wednesday, May 26, 2021. It is now about 6:12 p.m. This meeting is called to order. I don't believe we need to do the pledge since we just did it. But for the record, will you please call a roll, Sherry?
Yes, Commissioner Blackburn?
Yes.
Commissioner Croft?
Yes.
Commissioner Krajewski?
Present.
Vice Mayor Robinson?
Here.
Mayor Henderson?
Here. Okay, under old business, number one is discussion on the sewer system. Commissioner Krajewski.
Okay. So I've got a couple of things here, and I'm going to try to keep it brief. Each of you have gotten a packet. Actually, it's a set of emails, one from the vendor, Miller Pipeline Shenandoah, on the updates on the sewer, and the other one is related to our friends over at Shenandoah Septic, related to the storm drain. So hopefully stormwater, I should say, system. So I'll just go over some of that stuff. But what I want to do is take us back a little bit to kind of finish up where we are with the location of the emergency work that was done on Gulf Boulevard. All of the work was done, completed, the 3 sewer lateral lines by the San Vista, the Wynot, and Sevo, along with approximately 27 feet of new PVC pipe was installed. The metal plates have been removed, thank God. People were complaining about noise, especially the people that were in some of the adjoining facilities there. So they did come in, and actually I want to commend the folks from Miller Pipeline. They actually used somebody locally here to do the blacktop. I think it was either Indian Shores or Indian Rocks. So I think that was pretty neat of them to reach out as opposed to looking for a contractor that's not even in the county, so to speak. And they covered it up. Well, I thought we were done. In fact, Mary asked me, so it looks like we're done. And when I circled back with them, there is something that needs to be done, and that is that blacktop and asphalt doesn't meet FDOT's requirement. They filled it and covered it with where they were able to expose the pipe to do the work. But apparently you have to go beyond what you dug when you finally put the final coat of blacktop on. So now they're negotiating. So it could be as much as 20 feet on each side beyond what's already been cut off on the blacktop, or less. They're trying to get less, and it's not cheap. So they're in negotiations now with FDOT to finalize that so that we do have a full, complete end of the emergency work there. So I just wanted to set the record straight. I think even at the last meeting, I might have stated that we were pretty close to being done. I didn't realize that was a final step. They told me we were in negotiations, but I thought it had to do with the hole that was exposed that was covered by the metal plate. And it turns out that it's a little bit beyond that. So they're working very hard on that. So I want to commend my Miller Pipeline on that. Onto the Miller Pipeline and Shenandoah inspection and assessment that was done starting back in April, on April 26th. Again, there's a synopsis of this. So rather than go through it, unless you want me to give you kind of a top level of where they are with the manholes, the state workstations, lift stations. All I would like to ask is, does the commission want me to proceed with any overview, or are you comfortable what's in the email?
Easy enough to read.
Sorry.
It was I understand it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So then I'll just ask, are there any questions then? What was in the email?
And let's see. So this is, I'm confused by Wind River Environmental because I haven't seen that name. That's just
Wind River. That's okay. So Wind River is we'll get to that in a minute. That's
okay.
the new parent of
Shenandoah. Okay, that's all.
Yeah,
that's
they
all.
were.
Okay, got it.
They were actually acquired, and we found out actually. Mary and I were making a call to them. We found out like a month or so in that they'd already been acquired. So yes, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I'm still on Miller Pipeline in Shenandoah. Any questions on that? On anything, whether it's the amount of money or the time elapsed to get this thing completed?
Yes, I have a question. In talking with Kirby Howell, the chair of the FAC, who met with you and Chris Henderson, and with Pinellas County.
I'll get to that.
Okay, all right. Well, there's,
Okay.
well, my question, and you can get to it in a minute, but my question relating to that is that Kirby indicated to me that there is quite an extensive report that was produced by Pinellas County about the sewer system, and I've not seen that, and I'm just wondering about spending money to do the same work with Shenandoah, if that's necessary.
I'm not aware of that and wasn't brought to my attention. I don't remember having that conversation with Kirby about that work. And I thought when we started back, I guess in early part of April, to ask them to proceed with this, I don't remember that coming up in any of the discussions we had.
No, and what
And
I
I blame you if we want to stop, I can stop where we are. I'm just concerned too that I don't know what the date of that was, and it might be outdated.
Yeah, I would ask you to talk with Kirby about that and take a look at that report. When we agreed and the commission voted to go ahead with this assessment, it was because we wanted to move those two analyses, the analysis of whether or not we should sell the system to the county, and the analysis of what shape the system was in on our own parallel. But that was without knowing that this other report from the county existed. So I think that's fair. It would behoove us to make sure that we've seen that.
Okay, I think that's a great idea. I will reach out to Kirby.
Thanks, Bill.
And I'll also reach out to Pinellas County about that report and see what the date is of that. So, I hate to be so methodical, but are there any questions about the Shenandoah Miller report? Email, I should say, not report necessarily, and the timeframes and the cost. Okay, so on to the Pinellas County. I thought you were going to talk about the meeting we had about the acquisition of the PCU. There was a call last Friday. Kirby Howell and Chris Henderson from the Finance Committee, Town Finance Committee, and myself, we participated in a Zoom call with the PCU team. Overall, they are definitely still interested in pursuing that. So we wanted to make sure that nothing had changed from when they first engaged us. And actually it was predated my taking over the sewer system. And right now where we stand is there's a few follow-ups that we need to provide information to the PCU. Mary's got that information and she's working on it. In addition to the engineering work that was done, PCU has now engaged their accounting team to develop a discounted cash flow analysis to try to come up with some numbers that work to what ultimately everybody wants to know. Well, what's the deal? And we don't have that information yet. I think we're a little ways off yet, somewhat premature. But I think from all of us that were on the call, afterwards, I talked to everybody. We all thought it went very well. And I think right now it's a very positive situation. So more to report on that as we get through the continued discussions with the PCU. Any questions on what's happening with the Pinellas County?
Well, could I ask a question? So are we going to be just moving ahead with the work to be done and paying for the additional work in the sewer system until we can identify with Pinellas County they're going to take?
Well, I can have them stop.
Well, no, I don't know what the best approach is. I mean, should we continue to put is it urgent that we continue to do these repairs? Are they urgent repairs, or is it something that we should hold off on until we know what we're doing?
So
with Pinellas?
I'm willing to take the direction of the commission as a whole. I'm only one person that's responsible for that.
Are they emergency repairs that you're doing, or are they?
We're not doing any repairs at this point.
So
we're just analyzing and inspecting the sewer system.
I thought the proposal that you had was for prices for.
Oh, are we on? I'm sorry. Now I'm confused. No,
are we talking about sewer or the stormwater?
No, we're still on sewers. We're not going to stormwater.
Okay.
We're not doing okay. Stormwater was the first paper in my thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
okay. Go ahead.
That's okay.
We're talking about the sewer.
I'm so linear. If you get me off my track, I'm out of control here. So, okay. So actually, I thought you were talking, and actually it's a good question, and I thought you asked me, based on what information Mike shared now tonight, do we want to stop
Right.
the work
If it's not
that's being
urgent.
done by Miller and Shenandoah right now, which is inspecting the manholes, inspecting the sewer lines, inspecting the pumps, the lift stations.
I would think we would want to continue that.
My notion would be that you get with Kirby and Chris, and you guys get your heads together on that report that Pinellas has, and then make a decision on whether or not it's advisable to continue with all of this analysis, or whether it makes sense to hold off on. I mean, that would be, but I wouldn't want to hold off on any emergency repairs.
There's no, right now, there is nothing being done in any additional repair work.
Okay.
What was done over here on Gulf Boulevard was it. This is strictly I&I work.
Yeah.
Now, I want to make sure too, so, and I'll talk to Kurt, but I want to make sure too, just for the rest of the team here. The report that was submitted to us back a few months, that report, they only analyzed the PCU in getting to the numbers and information they supplied us. They only analyzed 10% of our system. So if there's another report that you're referring to that Pinellas County did, I kind of surprised now too, if there was another report, why that report was incorporated into the report that they sent us, and then he went out and did another 10% inspection.
So,
But
and frankly, that's why I think it's good for you to go back to Kirby and with Chris. I may have misunderstood what Kirby said, and since the three of you are heavily engaged in this, and I think doing a very fine job working together with those guys, that you can figure it out from there.
Okay. So
because like I say, I was surprised when Kirby said there was
I'm kind of surprised.
lengthy report. So
believe me, I don't want to spend money if I don't have to.
No,
That's
I
not
understand
where I come from. Not my training either as an accountant. So okay. So moving on to the stormwater management work.
Wait, just 1 second.
Okay.
So is this of the sewers or is this the stormwater?
That's the sewers.
Okay.
That's the report.
And
yes.
100% of this bit done.
Okay. Yeah. So
25 of this.
all the yellow lines on that map indicate where they've been. And so let me also make something clear too, because it might not come out on that report. And in fact, that's one reason why I have my iPad here. I want to blow up the map if there's any specific questions.
Okay.
Because it's hard to read. And I did not get any larger copy. All of the manholes in the whole town have already been inspected, except for the manholes on Gulf Boulevard. So all the neighborhoods, even if there was lateral work, like for instance, Pumpkin Key, which you're referring to, right? AKA District 4, a part of it. The manholes and all of the sewer lines have been inspected.
Okay.
Then we move on to the work that was done in the other districts. Again, all of the other districts they're calling them here, for lack of a better term, because they had to slice up some of this. They're calling them stations. And also, I want to make sure everybody understands this. The reason they started at the north end, that's the highest point of the sewer system. So that's why they started there as opposed to at the low point. So I won't say the phrase, but I think you know what I mean. All right. So that's why they started on the north end. And it makes sense. It really does. And then also to our lift stations, pretty much all of them are on the south end.
Here. Yeah.
Yeah. So the sequencing was to get all of the work done on the west side. I'm reiterating from what I reported earlier a couple of weeks ago of Gulf Boulevard. And then also work in all these sections when they were going into these neighborhoods, because they're using different equipment to do different things based on whether they're doing sewer lines or they're actually doing the manholes inspections. So 25% of district, I'll call it District 2, but Station D has been done as far as the inspection of the laterals. And then the other three, there's three other stations, section C, which is predominantly District 1. Jenny, your place. Again, all the sewers, the manholes are done, but we haven't done much work there. You can see very little if anything. Then section B, Mike, your stuff, again, all the sewer manholes have been inspected, and there's no work yet done on the laterals. And then the last piece of it is going on the east side, even though they're on your side, but going back north on the east side of Gulf Boulevard, which basically is the other part of my district. They haven't done anything with the laterals there, but they have inspected the manholes. So that's the work they're doing. Once that's all done, all the manholes, including the ones on Gulf Boulevard, then they will go to the lift stations, and they're going to actually drain those lift stations. There's a whole process involved to test the flow and look for leakage and so on and so forth. So I'm going to be a little skeptical about what I'm going to find out from PCU based on what these guys are doing. And one other thought too, I want to share with the group. I don't want to say this, but one of the things that did come out of the meeting with Pinellas County, as well as with the work that Miller Pipeline is doing right now, overall, the system is in fairly good shape. That was, again, we haven't gotten to the lift stations, which can be pretty pricey and some other things, but it would appear that about, and again, I got this offer, and wasn't in, it might have been in the report, I'm not sure. I don't think it was, that it looks like about 20 to 25% has some additional investigative work. And it can be anything from putting and sealing the manholes to doing spray coating of some of the lines to actually doing some plastering of the lines. And then last but not least is replacement, excavation, and pull out and replace lines. So that's 20 to 25% of what they've done so far, which includes the manhole, all the manholes, except for Gulf Boulevard, and then the work that was done in neighborhoods. So I think that's a good thing, or at least I'm kind of happy to hear that. So it's not as poor condition that we thought we might be in.
I do have a question on this stuff. The little squares, the little yellow squares with the arrows, what are those? Those
are identifications of reference points that the guys have regarding some reports that they're generating for us.
Okay.
And those, once they're done with all of this, what we will get is an assessment of everything they've done, including estimates on repair work.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Moving on to, last but not least, the work on the stormwater. So we started way back again on, it's kind of ironic that both vendors started at the same time on the 26th of April. And as I mentioned, they were brought in predominantly to look at some stuff that is televised and inject clean, the stormwater drains, the CDS units, the catch basins, and the outfalls. You have in front of you another email which lays out the work that was done so far, and they estimated they completed about 40% of the stormwater system. Okay, so that's their estimate, at least at this point, and they say they have another 60% to move forward with before they complete everything. And they kind of compartmentalized it into a couple different boxes related to the work that's being done. So right now, based on this information that was supplied to me yesterday and I shared with you guys yesterday, there's 45 man days left work. 45 man days of work left. And the total cost associated with that is approximately $149,000. Now, there are some challenges here because the monies that we spent up to date so far with Seminole, we've exceeded what we've allocated for this year. So we're at a crossroads.
What was the allocation? And
well, we booked this money, the initial start of it, against 50 some odd thousand. Mary, can you share that again with the team if you have it, Andy? I know you and I talked about, I thought it was around 50K, right? That
One
was
second, please.
okay.
50, that's good enough. That's gives me a ballpark. That's
And we
fine.
were a little over that number from
Yeah.
what the bills they supply us. But by the way, Mary, I just got a new, we're going to get a $6,800 credit. So that number might come down, and when we might not be over the 50K that we thought we were over today. But stay tuned on that. I'll get you that information. I literally got a voicemail as I was walking in here. Part of the reason why I didn't come in there 10 minutes earlier. I was right in front of Mike, but I walked in 10 minutes after he came into town hall here. So we're at a
Yes.
crossroads.
The budget for the stormwater line item is $50,000 for this year.
Right.
Okay.
And we're around 52,000, but again, it might be less than that because we got some bills in for the work they started. But again, that doesn't include some of the work that they've been doing since they supplied. That's the work that was done. So they have actually stopped.
Okay.
They stopped, it's almost 2 weeks now, doing any additional work. When I found out we were in a situation where we needed to come back as a group and vote how to best proceed, whether we stop the work and wait until October, put the monies into the budget for next year, or we pass an allocation or I don't know what to call it, additional funding requirement. We can't do it today.
Right. Yeah.
But I wanted to share this because I am going to bring this up at the meeting for a vote. One or two of these options are the two options, unless someone can come up with something else and they think somehow we want to prioritize what we need to do. Now, I'm going to prejudice myself, but I'm going to tell you right now, I think given we're so close to getting over the goal line, we got the storm season coming up. I'm hoping that the consensus will be that we move forward with this and we figure out how to get the allocation of the monies to be able to pay for this in the next couple of months and complete the work.
What are CDS boxes? Is that
okay? So everywhere there's a storm drain, if you were to look down there,
right?
It
it's
almost
a junction box, sort of.
Well, it's a circular device that when the water, the dirt, the leaves, all this other stuff goes into the drain, that thing kind of spins around and segregates and tries to parcel out all that debris as best it could, so it doesn't clog up the line, the outfall.
So it doesn't clog up the outfall. So
yeah, so the water comes in, right, and then at some point it's got to go out into the intercoastal.
Right.
So
okay.
And Bill, from what you found, the storm drains really did need some serious cleaning.
Oh God, do you want me to bring out my pet rock?
So in reality, we can really help our storm drainage during the flooding and rainy season.
Oh, absolutely.
By continuing this effort, if we can move money around to support that.
Yeah, and I'm not praying for rain, but I would love to be able to find out if it's working.
Yeah.
We've been pretty lucky so far, but it would be nice to know that what, to your points, exactly. Yeah, hopefully we're going to avoid another situation that we probably don't want to deal with.
Are the tipping fees related to disposal? So it's down here at the bottom of the last line, something on current tipping fees, that's disposal.
Yes.
Okay.
When they actually, I call it the elephant truck. I know Cindy's been out there, she's seen it. It's this huge truck it's a tanker on the back, and then it's got this big, huge circular, for lack of a better term, an oversized, flexible hose that they take and drop into the storm drain and clean them out, including then also as they're flushing and jet cleaning the lines, that stuff comes back up and the back sucks it up instead of pushing it out into the intercoastal. Right.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mayor. I didn't live up to my commitment.
No.
So, may I?
Please.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying here, Bill, and appreciate all the work that you're doing with these contractors to get that work lined up. So this is all, for lack of a better term, repair work to the current system.
Yes. We're talking now about stormwater.
Yeah, stormwater systems. It is fixing what we can of the current stormwater system that we have. It is not a full engineering study of the sewer system and what should or could be done to engineer a system that is we'll take care of the
capacity,
the town for another 50 years.
The amount of outfalls, the community catch valves.
Right.
Yeah.
So I support the need and agree with other commissioners here that this work to get the system that we've got working better is important, and I don't think it is. I don't think you can shut down the system and twiddle our thumbs while we wait for some engineering study to do it. But I do believe that considering some engineering study for the entire system is important. I talked with a consulting company today that does not do engineering studies, but they examine engineering studies and then they convert that into grant dollars.
Oh,
to
good.
do.
So we get a twofer. We get a grant writer.
So we can marry those kind of things up. Longer term. Yeah, maybe.
So actually, I don't want to bring this up because I thought we're getting.
I'm sorry, I opened it up.
No. But I want to add to that. I understand we have, I'll call it COVID money, and I understand that number is somewhere around 900,000. I haven't seen the paperwork. I asked for it, the PPE information, and I haven't received it yet. But in the documentation that I was able to read online, stormwaters and sewers are at the top of the list for the money that can be used for that.
Really?
So I will probably also, again, it's like anything else. We were supposed to have this report, I guess, or even, was it going through the state first and then the county, Mary?
Yes.
Yeah, Beth? Yeah, so God only knows when we're going to get it, but we're at a budget season here too. It would be nice to know what that number is, because that could be monies that we don't have to allocate in our budget, that we might be able to tap some of this PPE money.
Yeah, or we may have to budget for it, and if we get the money, then back it out. Yeah.
I think we might have to budget for it because the COVID money we were using towards the rest of the undergrounding to expand with the broadband system and adding what is it out there? FiOS?
Yeah.
I think.
High speed.
Yeah. Well, eventually we'll get some sort of federal infrastructure money.
Right. Exactly.
Yes, right. That could be so. Yeah. So we'll just all stay.
We need about $1 million for that undergrounding.
Yeah.
Really? Oh my God.
Yes.
It's completed.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So I'm done now.
Okay. Well, does anybody else have anything?
No, I just, my only concern is that how quickly can we get this done, because we're in the storm season already.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like anything else, we've been pretty fortunate with weather, but they stop because of the situation. So we got another 2 weeks before I can flip the switch again if we decide to go forward, since we can't vote it tonight. Or you want to have a special meeting tomorrow morning?
Too soon. God, more notice than that. Sorry.
I was joking.
No,
I was joking.
I mean, the sooner the better.
If you really wanted to call a special meeting, you could.
Yeah.
The sooner the better.
Yeah, I agree.
If it's imperative that we do so, then we do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
if
you like Mary Beth and I were there when we had those couple of intersections flood, I do not want a repeat of that.
Oh, don't believe me.
So
Believe me.
no,
I
we
agree.
were in them.
I'm for a special meeting
Yeah.
to vote on this.
Yeah.
If,
Yeah, and Cindy and I have talked about this too, especially in her area where we got some challenges there. So
Yep. Okay.
Okay, so Mary, will you please see if any attendees have
Any
anything?
questions for me? I'd be more than happy to answer.
Yeah.
Yes, if
Very
there are any attendees that would like to speak to the commission on the sewer and the stormwater, please raise your hand. And I see none. Mayor.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to new business. It is number one is the discussion on the definition for setback lot line versus seawall. And that is Commissioner Crowe.
Okay, so we have found that in our ordinances, and there are a lot of inconsistencies in our ordinances that we uncovered during the time that activities are occurring and requests are being made. And one of the ambiguities that we found was in the detailing of what a setback is. Is it and this would be on the seawall lots, not the golf lots, and not the lots that have borders on all sides. These would be lots that back to the intercoastal, so they have a seawall. And we have a definition for setbacks and a definition for rear yard. We have other wording throughout in different parts of our ordinances that allow for judgment to be made as to whether it is the seawall or the lot line. And one of the problems that we have in our town is that some people's lots actually exceed the seawall. So they actually go into the water. So when you make a decision as to a 15-foot setback, is it a seawall or is it the lot line? So we wanted to, we had this, an issue with this, and we want to make sure that moving forward, we clarify as much as we can so the building official doesn't have to make judgment decisions. A building official is totally and completely authorized to make a decision when ambiguity exists. And we didn't have a lot of history. We had a couple issues where we had this situation in the past where a variance was requested because the setback was denied. And the people requesting the variance requested the measurement to be from the property line rather than the seawall because they, in fact, did have their property line beyond the seawall. So at that time, the staff report for 2 incidences said that they would allow the setback to be considered from the property line and allow the variance. And it was clearly said, I gave you all the materials, it was clearly said that by strict reading, the code seems to be permissive. And the evidence suggests it may have been interpreted that way in the past. From this definition, a reasonable person may interpret the or to be either reference, otherwise, or might mean the lot boundaries first if on land and then to the seawall if the seawall is past the boundary. So it leads them to say that it was structured in a way to leave subjective interpretation. And what we'd like to do is really try and get that subjective interpretation removed where we can. So I asked our attorneys to take a look at this and see, is it subjective? And should we maybe clean this up a little bit so we don't have to be concerned with consistency 15 years from now or 8 years from now? You know, you're doing record searches and record searches upon record searches for maybe 1 or 2 incidences that occurred and variances. So at any rate, I asked the attorneys to take a look at our ordinances was specific to various sections of the code. And we have the letter from the attorneys, which is kind of your first item. So the attorneys did identify that they wanted to clarify the definitions for setback and rear yard, which is 90-92 in definition. They felt there was no change needed in the 90-96B, where the references regarding the pool and the seawall. The attorneys felt that was pretty clear that whole section was dealing with a pool and a seawall and would not deal with going over into the property line if it was in the water. They also said that there's a couple notes where you look at the R7 and the R7 and the RS10 zones, where it actually specifically says it actually even says or, the either or thing, and it's just in the notes section. So they want to clear that up and make sure that it is specific to the seawall. So that is kind of, you have the background and the information on that, but these small language changes would clarify our ordinances. And I really think that it would be a good thing when we come up with these issues that we do take them, take a look at them and get them to be more clear.
So can you give me a specific example of like how far past the seawall the lot line was?
There are lot lines that exceed 11 to 15 feet beyond the seawall. And there was a 17, but I think that was an error. I think it was a typo.
So the lot line, they own out into the water.
Exactly. They own out into the water. And if they want to, and even if the building commissioner wants to interpret the lot line at that point in time as being that far out, the house or property or additional structure can be pushed closer and closer to the seawall. And so, we need to decide also whether we want to have the seawall as the setback or the lot line as the setback.
Isn't the goal to be more of a seawall?
I think it's my thought on this is that it's the seawall because we're looking at view obstruction. We're looking at not putting too much weight on the seawall with structures moving closer and closer to the seawall and then pushing the seawall out. I think the intention was for the seawall. I think that it just was unclear because we have lots that are bound all by land.
Just
so it was, or. So if we just clarify it by saying where their seawall exists, it's the closer line.
And it's much easier to measure from a seawall from some measurement in the water that you can't really measure from.
That's what
my question would be, if you make it the seawall and you have a lot that doesn't extend to the seawall, are you measuring from the seawall?
Say that.
Or are you measuring from the wall?
Okay, let's say that again. Ask me the question.
So you're talking about lot lines that are further out or beyond the seawall. Okay, so you want to use the seawall as the setback line.
Okay.
To measure from. But what about lots then? Are there lots then
not really, but
that the lot line is inside of the seawall?
I don't believe that exists, but it could.
Okay.
I mean, I haven't looked at every lot, but if you notice the correction that the attorneys made was under the identification of the definitions, it would be the main building and the rear lot property line or seawall, whichever is closer. So if the lot line is closer than the seawall for some reason, it's the whichever is closer, which I really like the way they worded that.
Yep, you're right. You're right. I remember now.
So what this is, in doing this, it's actually a land development change, not really a zoning change. This is only a land development change. So if we decide, and I would like to get your advice on this, if we want to proceed, I will have the lawyers draft up all these changes for the land development regulation. And then if we agree to pursue, and we'd like to do that, I would like to do that at the commission meeting coming up, then it would go to the P&Z for their review. And then we would go through and do our first reading and second reading. And I think that based on what I'm finding in the short time that I've been in this role, I'm really, really actively looking for these kinds of issues so we can correct them
within our code.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I do want to say one more thing. The other thing I am looking at is the possibility of us hiring a company to review our ordinances for inconsistencies, which might take us beyond all the little details that we're seeing. We might get some benefit from that. And speaking with our legal team, they realize that our codes have been changed so many times and adapted that we haven't always gone through every single place where that topic exists. So that's where we have these inconsistencies. So it's something that I'm looking into, just to let you all know and to see if there are people. I think there are people out there that will actually do a code review for us, if that's something you want. But at any rate, this is just one little issue. And although they're small changes, they're significant to our residents to actually help them in knowing when they're going into projects what the answer is, and not that we're just going to make a decision on this. And it really is up to the building official at the time. So I'd like to take all that away as much as possible when we can. So if that's it, if you have any questions, because there was a lot of material in here with the.
Yeah, so on a specific question about this specific change that you want to make, I would ask to look at what the county code is in relation to undeveloped or outside the municipalities in the county.
Yeah, what Pinellas County has for their code in this regard.
I don't want to be inconsistent or
right
or they may have already addressed it. So I'd ask you to look at that.
So
yeah, and
I'm sorry.
and then second on a review of the building codes for consistency. Can you bake that into your budget proposal?
I would. Yes, it's not in the numbers that I just put out.
I know it
really,
wasn't,
this kind of came up, and there's just we have a lot of things that we could improve, and I think
it's important. Having that discussion we had before about where we're going, strategically and everything else. The building department was a big issue. The sewer and the stormwater. Those are big issues. So.
This touches everybody.
If you got notions to fix that, let's try to put some specificity to it.
I can definitely work on this next week. And so I'll put it on the agenda, and hopefully I'll have enough detail. And if I don't, at least I'll present what I have. So it kind of gets you start thinking about it.
Well, I mean, it's a logical thing to think from the seawall. That's a concrete.
Well, that's
measure. You can't measure from a boat in the water accurately.
Yeah.
And look how close it could. If your
17
lot line is
17 feet, 11 feet.
Yeah.
Your house would be over the seawall.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense.
It does not make sense for
Yeah.
what we're trying to accomplish, the resiliency of the town.
Right, and I think because our town lots are so much smaller than even North Redington's, we have to think.
Yep.
I think this feels like not a change, but
Clarification.
It's just a clarification. Yeah. It's just a clarification. So it's not up to the building official to interpret.
just making it more consistent.
The less we have interpretations, the better we are in our
Right,
community.
but I just think it makes more sense to be able to measure from a true point. So,
and they're really simple changes. They're just
Right,
a couple
minor.
words here and there. But they will
Right.
require. all the process.
hey Mary, can you see if anyone out in the audience cares to comment on this?
Yes, I have two hands raised. I will first go to Tim. Tim, I am going to allow you to talk. I am going to promote you to a panelist. And again, I'm going to ask you to state your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes. And I'm asking, okay, go ahead.
Hi, this is Tim DuBois, 636 182nd Avenue East. I guess I'm probably the center of the storm on this one. And I guess I did see consistency for lots of years, but I haven't seen consistency now. And I know the building official has provided a permit for a neighboring address of mine, but I still don't understand, based on the rules, how he came back with the setback that he did, because the setback's actually within 10 feet of the seawall. And I know when I had a roof put over my deck, I had to have a variance a dozen years ago. And a lot of the houses along there all have the same situation, where actually they have submerged land beyond the seawall, including mine. And at least one to the right, and I know 2 or 3 to the left of me or to the west of me. And I guess in the past, the building officials, and I can go back probably 40 years, have been fairly consistent with where the setback is. And if you wanted to go beyond that point, I believe in a lot of cases you needed a variance, which I needed at the time to put a roof over my deck. And I was just trying to understand how they came up with the formula, because, you know, our seawalls and my seawall is about 75 to 78 feet back on my deck from the front of my property. And the neighboring ones are within a couple of feet. And I'm not sure, based on this situation, how they said, okay, you can build out 8 feet past what they have traditionally have told the neighbors that you can do without a variance. So that's what I've been driving this. I also know that some of the properties on 182nd, even another one that I own at 318 182nd, have a situation where our property does not go out to the seawall. So, and I guess when I did speak to the building official, he stated that people pay for their property, even submerged land, so he believes they should be using the lot line. And I guess my contention is they should also have looked at historical precedent and decided, okay, and kept it conservative. And I know there's places in the code where they said if there's two conflicting pieces of information, that I guess they should choose the more conservative or restrictive of the two. So anyway, I don't know what else to say at this point. I've been a little frustrated, and I would like to make sure there is consistency, because in speaking to neighbors on both sides,
Tim, I'm sorry, your 3 minutes are up at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I think, Tim, this will provide that consistency. I think we will absolutely clear those issues up. And I thank you for the input that you've given us.
Okay, so we have another hand raised. We have Leslie Kopic. Leslie, I am going to, you can talk, go ahead.
Okay, I live at 17819 Lee Avenue, and we live in Tampa some of the time, and I know over here that it can depending on if you're on Davis Islands or if you're off of West Shore, there are some different rules, but generally it goes to where the lot is, even if it's submerged into the water often, because that was the property line. And what they were finding too is that people would build their seawalls and build new seawalls without tearing down their old seawall. So all of a sudden, you know, your property became bigger, sort of, if you will. Your seawall was further back. So if you're saying it's going to where the seawall is, sometimes which seawall are you speaking of? So just food for thought. And that I hate to see anybody lose any of their views because we make some kind of change or define it. So that was the only thing. And would it also change? Would it just be those on the water on the east side of Gulf Boulevard, or how would that work for our houses on Gulf Boulevard on the beach? Like
the west side has an ordinance separate from this, and it's pretty clear.
Okay,
it's really just the
ours is based on the CCCL line. Yeah,
we don't have over here.
They don't have that.
This is really just the intercoastal that has the houses back up to the seawall.
Okay, so it wouldn't affect any of the other neighbors or anything else, just the waterfront.
Any landlocked line, it's a lot. This is really just for those lots that back up to seawalls.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Okay, I see no other hand raised, Mayor.
All right, thank you. So the consensus is to
proceed with the, okay. All right,
okay,
thank you.
Great. Okay, next item. Oh, see you again.
I'm just going
on. Fence ordinance, BE and AE.
That's number 2. Okay. So this is, we have a couple citizens who had started a process about 8 months ago to request a solid fence on their property, and they had submitted a permit, And the permit was authorized, but with the adaptation that instead of a solid panel fence, it be a shadow box fence, which is the center rail with slats on either side so that it allows an opening in between the slats for airflow. It's called shadow boxing, airflow and also for equalization of water. Any rate, when I became commissioner, I approached the residents who had made this comment to me when I met them, that they had this request in to have an ordinance change that the previous, my predecessor had put into motion a request to change the ordinance to allow solid fencing. So I took it up, and I can see the emails went back and forth. I think I gave you all the information with the history of it.
Was it really put into motion? Or
it was never put into motion and never brought up. So then I, as a commissioner, representing these folks, I decided to take a look at it because it was committed to them that we would do this. I knew that FEMA had requirements, and I knew that that was the reason for a lot of our fence regulations. So I met with folks, saw their fence, and then I decided to look into what we could do and what we couldn't do. And what I really found out, and I've spoken with FEMA, our Pinellas County floodplain administrator, our ordinance writer. I've done a lot of research. I even tried to create a fence that would allow some water flow that might fit the FEMA parameters. We were almost there with it. And the bottom line is the particular velocity zones, the hazard zones that we live in, the VE zone and the AE high hazard zone, just will not permit a solid fence because the solid fence will deflect the flow of water. And in that deflection, it can cause damage, more damage to property than would be if a fence had the ability to allow the water and wind to flow between it. So the bottom line is the recommendation from our Pinellas County floodplain administrator is even the fence that I designed that I thought was great, but I knew I just wasn't quite there, would only work in a less hazard zone than what we have. I'd love to change this ordinance for these people. The problem is if we change the ordinance, it opens up our whole town to putting solid fences up. And can you imagine when we do have that high velocity hurricane and those solid fences are the ones that blow and cause more damage around the neighborhood. So I really wanted to bring this to you. I gave you all the background, all the pros and cons. I've gone back and forth on this. You know, I would do anything if we could get these people a solid fence. I've tried everything. I just think it's, you know, well, I'm going to let you guys decide. You've seen
for privacy.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. I mean, you know, from
The
years,
shadow box really gives it.
it gives them privacy, but you know,
it's more expensive.
it's a little more expensive. It is more expensive for them. And, you know, we do have more of a need for privacy than we did back when our ordinances were written in the, you know, late 50s, early 60s, where white picket fences were great, you know, so I understand the need for our community to have greater privacy.
But you can use shadow box.
I think
maybe
the safest option truly is for the shadow box because it allows for mitigation of the water, equalization, and it also allows for the wind to blow through. Now, you know, these solid fences are allowed in Miami-Dade County, and because Miami-Dade has a strong belief that wind is what they rate fences on. So their fences are based on wind rating. And what we're dealing with here, and also Miami-Dade is not all high velocity AE zones. We are primarily, there's a very small fraction of our town that is outside these zones. And what we have now with all these new flood analysis that we have is that we have the opportunity to have a great water influx, which will probably damage those homes on slabs greatly anyway. But by putting those solid fences in, the question is, are we allowing the opportunity for an unintended consequence of more damage to homes, surrounding these fences. And FEMA would say, we want to limit as much as possible the opportunity for increased damage. But boy, there's a thought out there that, you know, these are single level homes, and if that wave comes up, the house is going to be damaged anyway. Are we going to cause more damage? So you know, I really see both ways. I need your guidance.
There's an existing fence there now.
They have a lattice work fence. Yeah.
And they have posts.
Yes.
And then the lattice.
Yes.
work,
So they have
which is okay, but it's not enough privacy.
right. They want
privacy.
additional privacy.
Okay.
What about like the shadow box with the bushes or something? If shadow box really
Well,
isn't
that's a nice thought, but if you look at these people's properties, our properties are
enough.
so
Never
small.
mind. Shadow box gives you the privacy.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
just
It
more
gives the
of
privacy. And then if
spots.
we, like I even thought about, oh, what about if we just put bushes up? Well, a full-grown bush could be 3 feet wide, and that takes up, you know, we just have small properties. So, you know, I really would like some discussion on it.
So we replaced all of the garage doors at La Vistana because they were, you know, rusting and aging, and vents in those garage doors were all required. We have breakaway walls in the garage area and everything else, but nonetheless, they're required for water flow, for flooding and that sort of thing. So, you know, while I can sympathize with this property owner, I also understand what FEMA rules are, and I, for one, would not want to ignore that.
It's
So if you made, so that one of the things I think about is that I don't know how you do both, how you get a fence that would be wind resistant, but that also would break away.
That is exactly the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, I had designed this fence. I mean, it was perfect. It was going to mitigate the flood of water.
Did they have like an opening more at the bottom?
So what we were literally going to do was, you know, the lattice work at the top of these plastic, you know, the PVC fences, you can actually flip it upside down. So the lattice work was on the bottom. So that allowed the even flow. And then, you know, okay, look, if lattice work is permitted for the flow of debris, that's okay. But then came the solid fence, and it was above 40%. I couldn't get the fence, the solid part of the fence, to be less than 40%. I was able to figure out breakaway, but then, and that was great for the water, but then you don't want a breakaway fence when it comes to wind, particularly sustained winds, not just a gust, but a sustained wind. And they certainly make these PVC fences that will hold up to 100-mile-an-hour winds, which is what Miami-Dade wants to have happen. However, they can't then break away. So it was a dichotomy of choices. And
okay, so the point of breaking away, you don't want, the reason why you wouldn't do a solid fence, I'm just trying to clarify my understanding, is that if you had a wall of water come, and it met with that solid wall of resistance, the water would build there and build there and build there, and then it would break it loose, and then it would become a
well, no, actually, the fence has to break away with the wave of water, so it doesn't change the course of the water. That's the issue. That's why you have to have a breakaway.
That's why you have all the walls in the garages.
So that's what, but
the solid fence is for the wind.
It would do this, and then it would go in another direction.
Yes. Well, let's say, okay.
Maybe it would create, just like, you know, in between our condo buildings where you walk in the middle, like
wind
tunnel.
The wind tunnel.
Well, wind tunnel.
That is interesting. That is interesting, because so FEMA said, when you have two buildings close together, you have a wind tunnel to begin with.
Right.
But the thing with this breakaway is the breakaway will break away and not cause a diversion of the flow of water. However, you're more likely in our environment to have wind events, gusts of wind, and then sustained wind. It's only the one, what is it, the 100-year storm that we're going to have that's going to need the breakaway. So then we need a resistant fence, and FEMA doesn't allow that. So
how can we go against FEMA? I mean, really?
I
don't really think so.
No, really, can we?
Well,
I would
that's
not.
a good.
I think we're headed down the wrong path.
I just think so. I mean, we really.
Wait. So if we change this ordinance, what the law of unintended consequences? If we change the ordinance, what could be the consequence for the town from FEMA? Could it
They-
affect our rating?
Yes, yes. It doesn't have a direct rating, but when they look at the overall resiliency of the town and they see infraction here and infraction there and infraction here, they use that in their rating system.
So
It could affect
That-
us.
the amount that everybody pays for their
Mhm.
flood insurance.
And the other,
if we change it.
the other thing is also what the insurance companies would say to the homeowners that had fences that were non-compliant to the FEMA regulations. Would they still, if the damage was caused by the fence hitting the house, would it still be a flood issue or would it be a
Liability.
fence issue? So it's,
Wait a second. Okay, so let me ask you this.
okay.
So there are, I'm sure, I know people in town, even in that neighborhood, that have solid fences.
Yes, that's
So that, like in violation of our own ordinance,
correct,
for, because God knows
correct,
what was approved before.
correct. And most,
So wait. So if I own a house, let's say I have a solid fence, somebody 100 years ago approved it or whatever, and in violation of the ordinance, and storm comes, my fence becomes a projectile, and my fence was obviously not in compliance, then it's a question of, let's see, they can sue me. Like if my house projectiles, my fence projectiles into your house because I have the wrong kind of fence.
that I don't know, but I can tell you that we do have a few of these fences in our neighborhoods. And a majority of them were built without permits.
Wow.
There were very, very few that had a permit, and we're not even sure if the fence was changed after the permit was issued and the fence was inspected, because some of the permits were so old that it could have been a different fence put in. You know, like they had
What do you do with them?
well, that's a question that we might want to take up. Do we want to
Make sure that we are really resilient.
and address the fences that aren't?
I don't know. It doesn't
We-
seem fair.
We have a lot of things that were perhaps
mixing
Not-
with this?
done in a compliant way, and that's a fact. And I'm not suggesting that we ought to go back and try to correct all that, but we ought to look toward the future and not make the same mistake twice. And I don't think that we can pick and choose which regulations or which FEMA directives we adhere to and which ones we ignore, because you start, if we ignore this one, what about the next request that comes in that says, you know, you didn't think this was important, you know, you let that go for that person. Why can't you let my, desires?
And I think we, as a community, need to be more forthcoming when we build, and we do get permits. We do follow our regulations, because we're jeopardizing our neighbors. We're not just doing something that we want to do for our homes, but there are unintended consequences for not getting permits when they're needed and for just putting things up, because the damage could be to other properties
Or people.
or people. Hopefully everybody's sheltered in place or out of town.
And these
So,
codes, there aren't gray areas. They're black and white. And I think that we've got to be consistent.
I think that the idea to have our codes formally reviewed, because if I've read the codes in other towns and going, oh, that sounds great. They said that so well, like some of them make a lot of sense in certain areas, and we can learn from that. I mean, I think we really should have them reviewed and then really, really, really let's stick to them. Where they're unclear, let's make it clear and let them enforce them.
Well, if you have a code, you better enforce it.
That's right. Make it clear, first of all. Where it's not clear, and I really agree with your suggestion, giving someone to review our code and suggest changes. If it's not clear, make it clear. that way it's easier to enforce. That way we don't have so much disturbance of our building officials in office saying, well, it says this, and what about this? And can I do this?
But in this example, Jenny, it's clear we don't allow a salt fence, so it's not an issue. So I mean, it was like the prior conversation with the unclarity, but yeah, but this is definitely, if we want to stick on target with this is a clear ordinance, and it opposes FEMA's position to allow a salt fence.
Yeah. Right. Is there anybody in the audience, Mary?
We have 7 attendees, and I'm asking anyone that would like to comment to please raise your hand. I don't see anyone, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right. So what is the feeling consensus?
I wouldn't change the code.
Well, we're not voting, though.
No, it's
No,
not.
but this
It's
is
already in place.
this is just if you want me to move forward. Basically, if you
No.
want me to move forward and have the ordinance rewritten.
The
Not
fence
me.
doesn't have to be rewritten.
Oh, we would have to rewrite an ordinance if we wanted to put this fence in.
Oh, no. We're leaving it as it is. We have a solid fence,
Right.
no, not allowed.
Correct.
Well,
If we want me to move
Oh,
forward,
do you want to move forward?
No.
Right. Nobody wants to move forward. You don't want to, Jen?
Move forward, what?
Changing.
Ordinance? We can.
right? Okay.
Okay, so we'll just leave it.
I
as
know
it
it
is.
sounds simple. This sounds simple, but it is
I know. I
disappointing.
saw the emails back and forth.
It's
and you know, I feel bad for them.
It's
because they were promised
disappointing.
something
It's
from your
disappointing. A
predecessor
very
that it's
yeah.
not.
a couple that follow the rules. That it's
It almost feels like they're getting nabbed.
yeah. I just
And
but I get it, and I did try everything. I
you did
tried
try
to
it.
redesign the fence.
You really did. And
I almost had it. Okay, that's it. That was it from me.
all right. I believe that is it for this evening's workshop. So under miscellaneous, our next regular meeting is Wednesday, June 9th, 2020, 6 p.m. I cannot believe it. It's already June. Should be halfway to Christmas. Before you know it. And the next workshop meeting is Wednesday, June 30th, 2020, 6 p.m. I would say this meeting is adjourned.
Good night, all.